What is up, guys? It's your boy, Rick Kakis, and today, we got an absolutely massive new update from Bungie detailing the changes coming to abilities when the Lightfall expansion launches. So just like how last week they previewed the buffs and nerfs coming to weaponry within Lightfall, now it's time for builds and abilities. So let's get started. First things first, Bungie goes over the fact that for the past year, we've had the subclass 3.0 updates. So Void, Arc, and Solar were all brought forward into the subclass 3.0 framework. However, Bungie acknowledges that due to all of the additions with aspects and fragments, exotic armor, combining all these things, mods, things got a little out of hand in terms of how fast you could get abilities back, kind of diminishing some of the harder PvE content, as well as leading to a lot of ability spam within the Crucible. So, going forward within PvE and PvP, Bungie says our goal is to kind of get things back to where they were roughly when the 30th anniversary pack launched in December 2021. So here are the changes being made. They've rescaled the efficacy of Discipline, Strength, and each class ability stat on your grenade, melee, and class ability regeneration rates. So in general, the regeneration provided by a tier 10 stat is now roughly equivalent to a tier 8 stat in the previous system. Additionally, each stat tier now provides a more consistent gain in cooldown rather than spiking heavily at lower tiers. But they do acknowledge that it's a game about space magic and your abilities will always be central to your combat loop. So this change looks a lot on paper. However, they say that we believe the build crafting improvements coming in Lightfall will more than make up for this reduction. They say, as a quick example, your legendary armor now has 3 type-specific mod slots, up from 2 right now, that can fit a wide variety of mods that are no longer restricted by elemental affinity. So starting in Lightfall, actually, you'll be able to run all of the following ability energy generating mods at the same time, and more freely be able to socket multiple copies of each. So Bomber, Outreach, Impact Induction, Kickstarts, all of that stuff you see here, guys, that improves your ability regeneration. You're going to be able to run more and stack them. Now, Bungie continues, additionally, armor mod energy costs have been reduced across the board, and artifact mods no longer need to be socketed into your armor. They're universal unlocks, giving you more space to build craft to your heart's content. In fact, so much is changing and being added in Lightfall that we expect players to find unique combinations of mods and perks that we didn't anticipate. In the coming seasons, we'll continue to tune the greater ability energy economy along with updates to specific ability potency to make them feel more powerful. So, big change overall. Undoubtedly, tier 10 discipline within Lightfall is not going to be as effective as tier 10 discipline is right now. However, again, if you do make your build really go hard into grenades, you put on, a ton of grenade kickstarts and potentially more grenade kickstarts than you ever were able to before because they cost less energy, you can perhaps get back to that same level that you are right now. You're just going to have to really dedicate your build around that particular stat. So definitely an interesting change. Moving on from there, they also say in Lightfall we'll be adjusting the base cooldowns of some grenade, melee, and class abilities. We'll provide a more detailed information in the patch notes when Lightfall goes live. As a preview, with Lightfall, we're reverting the base cooldown change to the dodge class ability that was implemented in a very recent hotfix, as we feel that their cooldown under the new stat scaling system is at a good place. So marksman dodge cooldown reduced 34 to 29 seconds, gambler's dodge as well, getting faster in Lightfall. Moving on from there, guys, some big changes to supers, particularly giving more of a differential to roaming supers and one-off supers. So, for roaming supers, they're going to increase the maximum number of orbs of power that can be created by defeating targets from 5 to 7. And then for the one-off supers, they're decreasing the orbs of power that can be created from 7 currently down to 5. Now, they do say the orbs of power generation from Well of Radiance, Ward of Dawn, and both Shadow Shot variants is unchanged. So kind of interesting, giving you a more of a maximum potential with the roaming super that should be the one that goes out and kills a bunch of ads. Additionally, they say we're also making changes to only 3 supers in our longest cooldown tier, reducing their base cooldown by 1 tier. So Hammer of Soul, Daybreak, and Spectral Blades, their base cooldown is being reduced from 10 minutes and 23 seconds currently to 9:16. So all getting faster cooldowns. Continuing with supers, we have some big balance changes. Firstly, with Ward of Dawn, the maximum health is reduced from currently 13,500 to 8,000. However, they say damage dealt to the ward by PvE combatants has been reduced to compensate. So in general, Ward of Dawn's effective health in PvE should not meaningfully change, but in PvP, it's got like, what, half health or something compared to what it does now, so way easier to pop in the Crucible. Additionally, they say they're standardizing the damage dealt by each type of kinetic and energy weapon against the ward itself. Previously, energy weapons did 2.5 times damage to the ward, and kinetic weapons did 1 times damage. Now, regardless of damage type, all weapons do 1.5 damage to the ward. Additionally, Armor of Light has been updated to reduce its potency in PvP. So the maximum health has been reduced from 425 down to 300, and now inherits Void Overshield's 50% PvE damage resistance, and it no longer negates precision damage. So wow, bubbles themselves are easier to kill, and the people inside are easier to kill as well. Next up, Thunder Crash is getting some changes. They reduced the maximum flight time from 5 seconds to 4.5 seconds. They reduced the size of the damaging volume around the player while in flight by 20% and pushed it further in front of the player to make flyby disintegrations more intentional. And the descent now begins earlier in flight. They reduced landing detonation size versus players by about 20%. But it's unchanged versus PvE targets, and for Fists of Havoc, they increased the PvE damage by 20%. Alright, interesting. Next up, with Arc 3.0's Spark of Resistance, they've increased nearby enemy count requirement for activation from 2 to 3, and they reduced the linger time after you're no longer surrounded from 4 seconds to 2 seconds. Then with Solar 3.0, the Daybreak, the super energy cost is reduced from 10% to 6.5% per swing, and increased PvE damage by 25%, so way more swings activations and more damage. Yeah, sign me up. Phoenix Dive has also struggled to find a role, they say, so the base cooldown is reduced from 82 seconds to 55 seconds, and with Heat Rises active, the Phoenix Dive's restoration duration increased from 1 to 3 seconds. When Daybreak is active, the cooldown is significantly reduced, allowing for rapid reactivations. In fact, the detonation maximum damage is also increased from 80 to 220. So like a one-shot kill when Daybreak is active potentially within the Crucible. And then next up, guys, this change came completely out of the blue, but it's crazy. Physics collision damage will no longer be lethal to Guardians within Lightfall. They say fall damage will still be lethal when Lightfall launches, but we plan to also make that non-lethal in a mid-season update. So basically, here's what they're saying. Have you ever been smacked by a phalanx at 100 miles an hour into a wall and died? Of course, that happens all the time. You will no longer be killed by that. Instead, it's going to put you at 1 HP, but you're still going to live. And again, there's going to be no more fall damage in Destiny 2. What a crazy change. And also, that's going to let us do some pretty wild things, especially, abusing movement to go really, really fast. If you egressed too fast, you could kill yourself now. That's not going to be a factor. Wow. Moving on from there, guys, an absolutely awesome change here. Bungie is going to be rebalancing some of the existing light subclass 3.0 fragments, but they're also going to be adding brand new fragments. That's right, brand new Arc 3.0, Solar 3.0, and Void 3.0 fragments to completely spice up build crafting and add powerful features to existing builds. And this is fantastic, guys. Honestly, can I say for a sec, this is one of the best parts of the subclass 3.0 updates. The framework for these subclasses allow Bungie to easily add things like new aspects and fragments to completely rejuvenate these subclasses in the future. So I'm so excited for this. So for Arc, there's a new fragment, Spark of Instinct. So when critically wounded, taking damage from nearby enemies emits a burst of damaging arc energy that jolts targets. So a ton of synergy with that jolt. And there's also Spark of Haste, a new fragment. You have greatly increased resilience, recovery, and mobility while sprinting? Dude, that's insane. There's a, right now, a Charge with Light mod. I can't remember what it's called, but the secondary ability gives you more damage resistance while sprinting, and a lot of people find a way to put that in their builds because it's so useful. This sounds like a fragment version of that. Greatly increased resilience and recovery while sprinting? Honestly, I feel like that's going to be a really highly used fragment within Lightfall. But moving on to Solar, firstly we have Fire Sprites. So Fire Sprites are created by a suite of new and existing Solar fragments and grant grenade energy specifically on pickup. So in case you missed this change in a previous video I did, essentially Bungie is retiring Elemental Wells. So Elemental Wells are going away within Lightfall, and in their place we get things like Fire Sprites. Arc already has Ionic Traces, right? But Solar is now getting Fire Sprites, and similar to how you would generate Elemental Wells and have to go pick them up, you generate Fire Sprites and you pick them up. And every single different element is going to have their version of this. Things that you can generate and then pick up to get ability energy. So, related to Fire Sprites, we have a lot of changes to fragments to accommodate them. So firstly, Ember of Mercy is a brand new one. When you revive an ally, you and other nearby allies gain restoration. Picking up a Fire Sprite grants restoration. Okay, that second part, picking up a Fire Sprite grants restoration, that's basically like what the Healing Wells mod, where you pick up a Solar Elemental Well and you get healing. That's one of the best ones in the game. This is going to be an insane fragment. Then for Ember of Resolve, Solar Grenade Final Blows cure you? You heal on Grenade Final Blows? Again, insane sounding new fragment. Then we've got some changes to existing fragments. Ember of Tempering, guys, now creates a Fire Sprite on Solar weapon kills while active in addition to its original effects. Ember of Combustion now creates a Fire Sprite on Solar super defeats in addition to its original effects. And then Ember of Searing now creates a Fire Sprite when defeating scorched targets in addition to its effects. Okay, so you just use a weapon with Incandescent, and then you put on Ember of Searing, and you have, infinite Fire Sprites. That's going to be nuts. And lastly, but certainly not least, we have Void. So we have Void Breaches. Now these are new. Void Breaches are created by a selection of new and existing Void fragments and grant class ability energy on pickup. So the Void version of Fire Sprites. Now we have Echo of Cessation or whatever. This is a new fragment. It says Finisher Final Blows create a burst of void damage that causes nearby enemies to become volatile. Defeating volatile targets creates a void breach. So again, I'm looking at that second part there. Put this on the Hunter Gearfalcon's build, where you get basically unlimited volatile rounds. You're going to be spawning so many void breaches, which is going to give you more class ability energy, which means that you can dodge to go invisible even more. That sounds nuts. Moving on from there, Echo of Vigilance, another new one. Defeating a target when your shields are depleted grants you a temporary void overshield. Wow. Then we have Echo of Domineering. So now creates a void breach when defeating suppressed targets, in addition to its original effects. Then we have Echo of Harvest, now creates a Void Breach when defeating weakened targets with precision damage, in addition to its original effects. And then lastly, Echo of Starvation, now grants Devour on picking up a Void Breach, in addition to its original effects. That seems like it would be much easier to do than the way to get Devour right now, which I think is picking up an Orb of Power. So now you can just pick up Void Breaches. Very, very interesting changes. So those fragments, a lot of them sound absolutely nutty, guys. And that's going to end today's new update. What do you guys think? What builds are you looking to make with these changes? Guys, that is it for the video. Hope you enjoyed and found this informative. If you did, please remember to help me out by simply rating and especially sharing this video. If you guys want to see more Destiny 2 content similar to this, don't be afraid to slap that subscribe button. If you want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter at RickKakis. That is linked in the description down below. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.